Years passed, and the story of the SS Horizon became legend, a tale told in classrooms, documentaries, and even bedtime stories for children. The bond between humans and the Vorthox set a new standard for how humanity approached life beyond Earth. It wasn't just about exploration anymore. It was about connection, understanding, and mutual respect. The crystalline artifact gifted by the Vorthox continued to yield discoveries, its secrets unlocking technologies that improved lives across the galaxy. Laura Hayes retired from active duty, but remained a guiding voice in interspecies diplomacy. She often visited schools and research centers, sharing her experiences with wide-eyed students who dreamed of following in her footsteps. "The universe is full of wonders," she would say, her tone warm and encouraging. "But the greatest wonder of all is what happens when we choose to trust each other." Nathan Cole dedicated his career to studying alien biology, focusing on symbiotic relationships like the one between the Vorthox and the microorganisms in their skin. His work led to breakthroughs in medicine, helping both humans and aliens adapt to unfamiliar environments. He kept a small sculpture of Spike on his desk, a reminder of the pup who had sparked his curiosity and changed his life forever. Maria Lopes became a leading figure in xenolinguistics, teaching others how to decode alien languages. Her methods were used in countless missions, bridging communication gaps and fostering friendships where none had existed before. She often said that the Vorthok language was like music, complex yet beautiful, and she encouraged her students to approach it with patience and an open mind. Sophie Bennett's designs inspired a revolution in habitat engineering. Her ideas were adapted for colonies on distant planets, ensuring that humans could live alongside alien species without disrupting their ecosystems. She never stopped tinkering, always looking for ways to make life better for everyone, no matter their origin. Alex Carter found joy in bringing people together through art. His harmonica performances became a symbol of unity, often played at ceremonies celebrating new alliances between species. He carried the memory of Swift's playful chirps wherever he went, reminding himself that even the smallest gestures could create lasting bonds. Kyle Morgan softened over time, becoming an advocate for peaceful coexistence. He trained security teams to prioritize understanding over fear, teaching them that strength lay not in weapons but in trust. Though he still carried a cautious nature, he no longer saw aliens as threats. He saw them as partners. The legacy of the *SS Horizon* extended far beyond its crew. Humanity's relationship with the Vorthox flourished, leading to joint missions, shared resources, and cultural exchanges. The glowing forests of the Vorthok planet became a sacred site, visited by humans and aliens alike who wished to honor the bond forged so many years ago. And though the pups grew into mighty adults, they never forgot the humans who had cared for them. On quiet nights, when the stars shone brightly above the forest, Spike, Boulder, and Swift would sometimes pause, their glowing eyes turning toward the sky. They remembered the warmth of hands on their armored hides, the sound of music drifting through the air, and the kindness of strangers who had become family. For Laura and her crew, the mission had been more than just a job. It had been a gift, a chance to prove that humanity could rise above its flaws and reach out to something greater. As they looked back on their journey, they knew they had done more than care for 3 young creatures. They had planted the seeds of trust in a vast and mysterious universe, proving that even the most savage beasts could find peace with those willing to listen. In the end, the story of the *SS Horizon* wasn't just about humans or Vorthox. It was about hope. A hope that, no matter how different 2 beings might seem, they could always find a way to connect. And in that connection, they would discover the true power of trust. Back on Earth, the crew of the SS Horizon became instant celebrities. News of their mission spread quickly, capturing the attention of scientists, politicians, and ordinary people around the world. The story of how humans had cared for the Vorthok pups and earned the trust of one of the galaxy's most fearsome species was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. Laura Hayes and her team were invited to share their experiences at conferences, universities, and diplomatic meetings, where they spoke passionately about the importance of trust and cooperation between species. The crystalline artifact left behind by the Vorthox became the centerpiece of countless studies. Scientists marveled at its complexity, discovering that it contained vast amounts of information encoded within its shimmering surface. Nathan Cole worked closely with researchers to decode the data, which revealed advanced technology and insights into Vorthok culture. The artifact included schematics for sustainable energy systems, methods of communication, and even glimpses of the Vorthok's history. It was clear that the creatures had gifted humanity something invaluable, a treasure trove of knowledge meant to strengthen the bond between their species. Maria Lopes continued her work decoding the Vorthok language, using the artifact's data to refine her translations. She published papers detailing the nuances of their communication, emphasizing how much could be learned from understanding alien perspectives. Her efforts inspired a new wave of interest in linguistics and interspecies diplomacy, as people began to see language not just as a tool but as a bridge. Sophie Bennett found herself in high demand as well. Her designs for the pup's habitat and her innovative solutions for adapting the ship had caught the eye of engineers and architects. She collaborated with experts to develop habitats suitable for other alien species, ensuring that future missions would be better equipped to handle similar challenges. "We're not just exploring space," she often said during interviews. "We're learning how to coexist with those who call it home." Alex Carter's harmonica performances became legendary after footage of him playing music for the pups went viral. People were captivated by the idea that art could transcend barriers, even between vastly different species. Alex used his newfound fame to advocate for cultural exchange programs, encouraging musicians, artists, and storytellers to explore ways of connecting with alien life through creativity. Laura Hayes took on a leadership role beyond the SS Horizon *, becoming an ambassador for humanity's growing relationships with other species. She traveled across Earth and its colonies, speaking about the lessons learned from the Vorthok mission. "Trust isn't given lightly," she often reminded audiences. "It's earned through actions, not words. And once you have it, you must honor it, not just for yourself, but for the future." Kyle Morgan, who had been skeptical at first, also found himself changed by the experience. He joined security teams tasked with protecting alien visitors to human settlements, ensuring that fear or misunderstanding wouldn't derail the fragile alliances being formed. Though he still approached situations cautiously, he carried a newfound respect for the power of mutual trust. As months turned into years, the legacy of the SS Horizon * continued to grow. The bond forged with the Vorthox served as a model for how humanity could interact with other intelligent species. Trade agreements were established, scientific partnerships flourished, and cultural exchanges became common. The glowing forests of the Vorthok planet became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the fiercest beings could find common ground with those willing to listen and care. For Laura and her crew, life eventually returned to normal, though they never forgot the pups or the lessons they had learned. They stayed in touch, meeting annually to reflect on their journey and celebrate the impact it had made. Each of them carried a piece of that mission in their hearts, knowing they had played a part in shaping humanity's place among the stars. And somewhere, deep within the glowing forests of the Vorthok planet, 3 massive creatures roamed alongside their parents, their glowing eyes occasionally turning skyward, as if remembering the humans who had once been their guardians. The next morning, the crew of the SS Horizon prepared for the final journey back to the Vorthok planet. The atmosphere aboard the ship was heavy with mixed emotions: pride in what they had achieved, sadness at the impending farewell, and a lingering sense of responsibility. Laura Hayes gave each team member specific tasks to ensure the transition went smoothly. Nathan Cole double-checked Spike's health, while Sophie Bennett made last-minute adjustments to the shuttle that would carry the pups safely to the surface. As they landed on the planet, the familiar humid air greeted them, thick with the scent of alien foliage. The towering trees glowed faintly under the pale sunlight, casting long shadows across the landscape. Before the crew could even step out of the shuttle, the ground trembled slightly as massive shapes emerged from the forest. The adult Vorthox had returned, their glowing eyes fixed intently on the humans and their precious cargo. Laura approached cautiously, holding up her hands to show they meant no harm. One of the adults stepped forward, its deep growl resonating through the air. Maria Lopez activated her translator device, hoping to communicate one final time. The machine struggled briefly before translating fragments of the creature's message. "You kept your promise." Nathan guided Spike, Boulder, and Swift out of the shuttle, their large forms moving hesitantly at first. The pups stopped just outside the hatch, looking back at the humans who had cared for them. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the soft chirps of the pups and the distant rustle of leaves. Then, slowly, the pups bounded toward their parents, their movements filled with excitement and relief. The reunion was emotional. The adult Vorthox lowered their heads, nuzzling their young affectionately. Spike paused halfway, turning back to look at Alex Carter, who stood nearby with his harmonica in hand. With a final chirp, Spike dashed forward to join his family, disappearing into the glowing forest alongside Boulder and Swift. Laura and her crew watched quietly, their hearts swelling with pride and sorrow. They had done what few others could. They had earned the trust of one of the galaxy's most fearsome species. As the Vorthox retreated deeper into the wilderness, one of the adults lingered behind. It let out a series of low rumbles, tilting its head toward the humans. Maria's translator beeped softly, capturing part of the message. "Thank you." When the creatures finally vanished into the trees, the crew remained still for a moment, absorbing the significance of what had just happened. Laura turned to her team, her voice steady but warm. "We did it. We proved that humanity can be trusted, not just with words, but with actions." Back aboard the *SS Horizon*, the crew began packing up the remnants of their mission. Sophie dismantled the habitat, carefully storing the materials for future use. Alex tucked his harmonica into his pocket, smiling faintly as he remembered Swift's playful antics. Maria saved her recordings and notes onto secure data drives, ensuring the knowledge they had gained wouldn't be lost. But the Vorthox weren't quite finished with them yet. Just before the ship lifted off, sensors detected movement near the landing site. The crew rushed to the windows, spotting one of the adult Vorthox standing where they had departed. In its massive claws, it held a crystalline artifact that shimmered with an inner light. Carefully, it placed the object on the ground before retreating into the forest. Curious, Laura ordered a quick retrieval. When the artifact was brought aboard, Nathan examined it closely, his eyes widening in amazement. "This isn't just decorative," he said. "It's some kind of technology, advanced beyond anything we've seen." The discovery sparked new conversations about the potential of interspecies cooperation. Though their mission was over, the bond they had forged with the Vorthox opened doors to possibilities far greater than any of them had imagined. As the *SS Horizon* ascended into the stars, the crew felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had proven that trust, once given, could bridge even the widest gaps between worlds, and that humanity's place in the galaxy was brighter because of it. The distress signal sent by Laura Hayes finally reached its mark. A nearby human colony, located in a system 2 light-years away, responded with news of relief. A supply ship was already en route to the SS Horizon, carrying food, medical supplies, and materials to reinforce the habitat. The message brought a wave of relief to the crew, who had been stretched thin both physically and emotionally. Yet even as they prepared for the arrival of reinforcements, a bittersweet reality began to settle over them. They would soon have to say goodbye to Spike, Boulder, and Swift. Alex Carter spent his free time teaching the pups basic commands, hoping to minimize future accidents once they returned to their planet. He used treats and gentle encouragement, rewarding them whenever they followed instructions like "stay" or "come." To his delight, Swift proved to be a quick learner, mimicking Alex's gestures almost perfectly. One afternoon, As Swift tapped his claws rhythmically against the floor in response to Alex's harmonica, the pilot grinned. "You're going to miss me, aren't you?" he said softly, scratching behind the pup's ear like flaps. Swift let out a low chirp, leaning into his touch. Maria Lopes continued her work decoding the Vorthok language, determined to leave behind a record of everything she had learned. She spent hours recording the pups' vocalizations, noting how their sounds changed depending on their mood or needs. By now, she could recognize when they were hungry, tired, or playful. She also wrote detailed notes about their behavior, hoping that future researchers could build on her findings. "These creatures are extraordinary," she told Nathan one evening as they reviewed the data. "They're not just intelligent, they're deeply emotional. They feel trust, curiosity, even affection." Nathan nodded, glancing at Spike, who was resting nearby. "It's amazing how much they've grown, not just physically, but emotionally. I think they'll remember us, even after we're gone." Despite the progress, saying goodbye wasn't easy. Sophie Bennett, who had spent countless hours designing and repairing the pup's habitat, found herself lingering near Boulder more often. The quiet pup seemed to sense her sadness, nudging her hand gently with his snout. "I know you don't belong here," Sophie whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "But that doesn't make this any easier." Laura Hayes felt the weight of the decision most of all. As captain, it was her responsibility to ensure the safety of her crew and the pups. She knew returning the pups to their parents was the right thing to do, but the thought of parting ways filled her with a deep sense of loss. Still, she reminded herself why they had taken on this mission in the first place: to honor the trust placed in humanity by the Vorthoks. When the supply ship finally arrived, the crew worked quickly to unload the much-needed resources. Among the supplies was a special nutrient formula designed to boost Spike's recovery further. With renewed energy, the team focused on preparing the pups for their return home. They practiced short trips outside the habitat, allowing the pups to reacclimate to the open air. Each outing was supervised carefully, ensuring the pups stayed calm and safe. On the eve of their departure, Laura gathered the crew in the cargo bay for a final meeting. "Tomorrow, we reunite these pups with their families," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "It's been an incredible journey, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished together. But remember, this isn't just about us. It's about showing the Vorthoks that humans can be trusted allies." As the meeting ended, the crew took turns spending quiet moments with the pups. Some laughed, others cried, but all shared a sense of gratitude for the bond they had formed. Though their time together was coming to an end, they knew the connection they had forged would leave a lasting impact, not only on themselves but on the future of interspecies relationships across the galaxy. Tensions aboard the SS Horizon began to rise as the weeks turned into months. Caring for Spike, Boulder, and Swift was rewarding, but it was also exhausting. The pups were growing rapidly, their size and strength increasing every day. What had once been playful nudges now felt like small earthquakes whenever one of them brushed against a crew member. Even simple tasks, like feeding or cleaning their habitat, required more effort and coordination. Kyle Morgan, the ship's security officer, grew increasingly uneasy. He had always been cautious about bringing the Vorthok pups aboard, and his concerns deepened when an accident occurred. One morning, while Sophie Bennett was adjusting a heat lamp in the habitat, Swift accidentally knocked over a stack of equipment with his tail. Tools clattered to the floor, narrowly missing her feet. Though no one was hurt, the incident left the crew shaken. "We can't keep ignoring the risks," Kyle said during a team meeting later that day. His voice was firm, though tinged with frustration. "These creatures are getting bigger and stronger. Sooner or later, something worse is going to happen." Laura Hayes listened carefully, her expression calm but serious. She understood Kyle's worries, but she also knew they couldn't abandon the pups. "We've made a commitment to these creatures," she reminded him. "The Vorthoks trusted us with their young, and we need to honor that trust. But I agree, we have to find ways to manage the challenges." Sophie stepped forward, her hands clasped tightly. "I think I can reinforce the habitat further. We can add stronger barriers and install sensors to alert us if any of the pups get too close to sensitive areas. It won't solve everything, but it'll help." Nathan Cole nodded in agreement. "And we should continue teaching them commands. If they understand boundaries, they'll be less likely to cause accidents." The crew worked together to implement these changes, but the stress wasn't just physical. It was emotional, too. Caring for the pups required constant attention, leaving little time for rest. Alex Carter, usually cheerful and energetic, found himself snapping at others when things didn't go as planned. Even Maria Lopez, who had been so patient with decoding the Vorthok language, grew frustrated when her progress slowed. Then came the day Spike fell ill. It started subtly. Nathan noticed that Spike wasn't eating as much as usual and seemed lethargic, lying down more often than normal. By the next morning, his glowing eyes had dimmed significantly, and he let out weak chirps whenever anyone approached. The crew gathered around him, their faces etched with worry. "We need to figure out what's wrong. Fast," Nathan said, his voice tight with concern. He ran tests using the ship's medical equipment, but the results were inconclusive. Whatever was affecting Spike wasn't responding to standard treatments. Laura made a difficult decision. "We're burning through resources trying to care for the pups. And now this. I'm sending a distress signal to nearby colonies. We need reinforcements, or at least supplies, to get us through this." As the signal transmitted into the void, the crew focused all their energy on helping Spike recover. Sophie and Nathan collaborated to create a makeshift medical bay within the habitat, using materials scavenged from storage. They administered fluids and monitored his condition closely, hoping for signs of improvement. Days passed, tense and uncertain. Finally, Spike began to show small signs of recovery. His eyes brightened slightly, and he managed to eat a few bites of food. The relief among the crew was palpable, though tempered by exhaustion. Laura pulled Nathan aside after one particularly long shift. "This has been hard on everyone," she admitted quietly, "but we're doing the right thing. These creatures are counting on us." Nathan nodded, his gaze drifting toward Spike, who was resting peacefully in the corner. "I know. And maybe this struggle is part of the bond we're building with them. Trust isn't easy. It takes sacrifice." Though the road ahead remained uncertain, the crew pressed on, determined to fulfill their promise to the Vorthoks. Each challenge brought them closer to understanding not only the pups but also themselves. In those moments of hardship, they realized that caring for another species wasn't just about survival. It was about connection, compassion, and the shared hope of a brighter future. Maria Lopes sat in the corner of the cargo bay, her translator device glowing faintly as she replayed recordings of Spike's growls and chirps. She had been working tirelessly to decode the Vorthok language, but progress was slow. The sounds were complex, layered with meanings that didn't always translate directly into human words. Still, Maria refused to give up. Every small breakthrough brought her closer to understanding why the Vorthoks had trusted humans with their young. One evening, after hours of listening to the recordings, something clicked. A pattern emerged, a sequence of low rumbles followed by a series of sharp chirps. Maria realized it matched the way the adult Vorthoks had communicated during their first encounter on the planet. Excited, she rushed to find Laura Hayes and Nathan Cole, who were discussing the pups' dietary needs in the ship's lab. "I think I've got something," Maria said breathlessly, holding up her device. "It's not perfect, but I managed to piece together part of what the adults were saying when they asked us to take care of the pups." Laura leaned forward, her expression eager. "What did they say?" Maria hesitated, choosing her words carefully. They weren't just asking for help, they were explaining why. "The adults told us they're migrating because of changes on their planet. Their usual territory is becoming uninhabitable due to rising temperatures and storms. They can't bring the pups with them because the journey would be too dangerous." Nathan frowned, his mind racing. "So they left the pups behind, hoping someone would find them." "Not just anyone," Maria corrected. They specifically sought out humans. According to their legends, humans once saved a group of stranded Vorthoks centuries ago. That act of kindness created a bond between our species, one that's been passed down through generations. The room fell silent as the weight of Maria's discovery sank in. The Vorthoks weren't trusting humans blindly. They were honoring an ancient alliance. Laura broke the silence first. This changes everything. We're not just caretakers. We're guardians of a legacy. If we succeed, we'll prove that humanity still deserves their trust. Over the next few days, the crew worked even harder to ensure the pups were comfortable and healthy. Nathan introduced new foods into their diet, experimenting with nutrient-rich supplements to mimic the plants and animals they would eat on their home planet. Sophie Bennett added climbing structures to the habitat, giving the pups a chance to exercise their growing muscles. Alex Carter spent hours playing music for them, delighted when Swift tried to copy the rhythm by tapping his claws against the floor. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Boulder, the quietest of the three, began showing signs of restlessness. He paced around the habitat, his glowing eyes dimmer than usual. Sophie noticed him lying down more often, refusing to eat. Concerned, she called Nathan over to examine him. He might be homesick, Nathan suggested after checking Boulder's vitals. He's physically fine, but he could be missing the adults, or the planet itself. Laura nodded thoughtfully. We need to remind them that they're safe here. Maybe we can recreate parts of their environment to make them feel more at home. The team brainstormed ideas, eventually deciding to project images of the planet's forests onto the walls of the cargo bay. Using footage from their initial landing, they created a virtual landscape complete with moving trees and glowing foliage. When the projections were turned on, the pups froze, staring at the walls in awe. Slowly, Boulder approached the image of a towering tree, reaching out to touch it with his snout. Though he couldn't feel the bark, the sight seemed to calm him, and he settled down with a contented rumble. As the days passed, the bond between the crew and the pups deepened. Spike, Boulder, and Swift responded to their names, played games with Alex, and even mimicked some of Maria's gestures. The crew realized that caring for the pups wasn't just about survival, it was about building trust, step by step. Laura often found herself watching the pups late at night, marveling at how much they had grown. They were no longer just creatures from an alien world. They were part of the *SS Horizon * family. And though the journey ahead was uncertain, Laura knew one thing for sure. The connection they had forged with the Vorthoks would leave a lasting mark, not just on the crew, but on humanity itself. As the days turned into weeks, Nathan Cole spent most of his time studying Spike, trying to understand what made the young Vorthok tick. One morning, while examining the pup's armored skin under a handheld scanner, he noticed something unusual. Tiny, glowing organisms were embedded in the ridges of Spike's hide. At first, Nathan thought they might be parasites, but as he zoomed in on the readings, he realized they were something far more complex. These aren't just random bugs, Nathan said aloud, calling Maria Lopes over to take a look. They're symbiotic organisms, microscopic creatures living inside Spike's skin. They seem to interact with his nervous system. Maria frowned, peering at the scanner's display. You think they're controlling him somehow? Not controlling, exactly, Nathan replied, shaking his head. More like regulating him. These organisms appear to produce chemicals that calm his aggression. It's like they're keeping him balanced, making sure he doesn't lash out unless absolutely necessary. The discovery raised new questions about the Vorthoks and their relationship with humans. If these tiny organisms helped regulate the pup's behavior, it could explain why the adults trusted humans so readily. Perhaps humans lacked whatever triggered the Vorthok's aggressive instincts, allowing the pups to stay calm around them. Nathan shared his findings with Laura Hayes, who listened intently, her brow furrowed in thought. This changes things, Laura said after a moment. If we can figure out how these organisms work, we might be able to help other species interact with the Vorthox safely. But for now, we need to focus on Spike and his siblings. Meanwhile, Sophie Bennett worked tirelessly to prepare the ship for the arrival of the other two pups. She expanded the habitat, adding reinforced walls and a secure play area where the creatures could stretch their legs. The crew also set up cameras to monitor their movements, ensuring they could spot any signs of distress or aggression early. When the second pup, Boulder, was brought aboard, the team approached him cautiously. Unlike Spike, Boulder was quieter and more reserved, often staying close to Sophie. He seemed fascinated by the tools she used to repair the ship, watching intently as sparks flew from her welding torch. "He's like a little engineer," Sophie joked, scratching behind his ear like flaps. Boulder responded with a deep rumble, almost like a purr. The third pup, Swift, proved to be the most energetic of the trio. From the moment he stepped onto the ship, he darted around the cargo bay, exploring every nook and cranny. Alex Carter found himself chasing after Swift more than once, laughing as the pup knocked over crates and sent tools clattering to the floor. "At least he's having fun," Alex said, panting slightly as he finally coaxed Swift back to the habitat. Despite their differences, all three pups shared one thing in common: a growing bond with the humans. They followed the crew members around, nuzzling them affectionately and responding to simple commands. Nathan taught them to sit, stay, and come when called, using treats and praise as rewards. Maria continued recording their vocalizations, slowly piecing together a rudimentary vocabulary. Even Kyle Morgan began warming up to the pups, though he still kept a wary eye on them during his patrols. One evening, as the crew gathered in the mess hall for dinner, Laura reflected on how much had changed since their arrival on the planet. What had started as a routine exploration mission had turned into something extraordinary, a partnership between humans and alien creatures. "Do you think the Vorthox knew this would happen?" Alex asked suddenly, breaking the silence. "I mean, did they expect us to connect with their pups like this?" Laura smiled faintly, stirring her cup of coffee. "Maybe. Or maybe they trusted us because they saw something in us. Something worth believing in. Either way, it's a responsibility we can't take lightly." The conversation lingered in the air as the crew finished their meal, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside the mess hall, Spike, Boulder, and Swift played together in the dim light, their glowing eyes reflecting hope and curiosity. For the first time in weeks, the crew felt a sense of purpose, not just as explorers, but as caretakers of a fragile yet powerful bond between two very different worlds. Back on the SS Horizon, the crew worked quickly to make the Vorthok pup comfortable. They had named him Spike, due to the sharp ridges along his back that reminded them of Earth's armadillos. Nathan Cole and Sophie Bennett spent hours preparing a makeshift habitat in one of the ship's cargo bays, lining it with soft padding and installing heat lamps to mimic the warm environment of the planet below. Maria Lopes stayed close, observing Spike's movements and jotting down notes about his behavior. Alex Carter, meanwhile, kept an eye on the shuttle's sensors, ensuring the adult Vorthox weren't following them. At first, Spike seemed wary of his new surroundings. He paced around the habitat, sniffing at every corner and occasionally letting out a low growl. But as time passed, he began to relax, especially when Nathan approached with a tray of food. The biologist had guessed that the pups might eat meat, based on their sharp teeth, so he offered small pieces of protein-rich rations they kept for emergencies. To everyone's relief, Spike gobbled them up eagerly, his tail wagging slightly as he chewed. The crew soon discovered that Spike was more curious than dangerous. When Alex played a soft melody on his harmonica during breaks, Spike tilted his head, his glowing eyes wide with interest. After a few minutes, the pup let out a series of chirps that almost sounded like music. Alex grinned and played another tune, laughing when Spike tried to mimic the sounds by humming deep in his throat. "Looks like we got ourselves a fan," Alex said, earning chuckles from the others. Maria spent hours trying to decode Spike's chirps and growls, hoping to learn more about how the Vorthox communicated. She noticed patterns in his noises, especially when he wanted attention or food. By the end of the day, she had created a simple chart linking certain sounds to actions, which she shared with the team. "If we can understand him better, we'll have a better chance of keeping him calm," she explained. "And maybe, just maybe, we can teach him some basic commands." As the days went on, Spike grew more confident. He began exploring areas outside his habitat, always staying close to Nathan or Maria. One afternoon, while Sophie was repairing a nearby console, Spike nudged her leg gently with his snout. Startled but amused, she reached out to pat his armored side. To her surprise, he leaned into her touch, making a contented rumbling noise. "He's not so scary after all," Sophie admitted, smiling despite herself. But not everyone was convinced. Kyle Morgan, the security officer, remained skeptical about keeping such a large creature aboard the ship. He voiced his concerns during a routine check-in, pointing out that Spike was growing bigger by the day. What happens when he gets too big for the habitat? Or when the other two pups come aboard? We're talking about 3 massive animals here. This isn't a petting zoo. Laura Hayes listened patiently, nodding as Kyle spoke. "I understand your worries," she said finally. "But remember why we're doing this. These creatures trusted us with their young. If we can prove that humans are worthy of that trust, it could change everything. For us and for them." Her words didn't completely ease Kyle's fears, but he nodded reluctantly, agreeing to keep watch over Spike. Despite the challenges, the bond between the crew and Spike continued to grow. Nathan taught him to recognize simple hand signals, rewarding him with treats whenever he followed instructions. Maria recorded videos of their interactions, hoping to use them as a guide when the other pups arrived. Even Kyle softened slightly when Spike greeted him with a playful chirp, though he still kept a safe distance. By the end of the week, Spike had become a part of the team in his own way. He followed them around the cargo bay, watched them work, and even curled up near the door when he felt tired. Though he was still a wild creature at heart, there was no denying that he trusted the humans taking care of him. For Laura and her crew, this was proof that their mission was worth every challenge, and a sign that the galaxy held wonders far beyond what they had imagined. After returning to the SS Horizon, Captain Laura Hayes called an emergency meeting in the ship's main conference room. The crew gathered around the table, their faces a mix of excitement and unease. On one side of the room, Nathan Cole stood with his arms crossed, still replaying the encounter with the Vorthox in his mind. Across from him, Maria Lopes tapped nervously on her translator device, trying to refine its settings for future communication. Alex Carter leaned back in his chair, twirling a pen between his fingers, while Sophie Bennett, the ship's engineer, scribbled notes about how they might adapt parts of the vessel to accommodate the pups. Laura cleared her throat to get everyone's attention. "We've been presented with an unusual situation," she began, her voice calm but firm. "The Vorthox have asked us, specifically humans, to care for their young. This isn't just a random request. It's a test of trust. But we need to decide if we're ready for this responsibility." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Kyle Morgan, the head of security, was the first to speak. "Captain, these creatures are massive and unpredictable. Even if the adults seem peaceful now, what happens if something goes wrong? We could be putting the entire crew at risk." Nathan stepped forward, his expression earnest. "I understand the concerns, but think about what this means. These creatures chose us, not any other species, to protect their young. That says something important about them, and about us. If we turned them away, we'd be missing a chance to learn more about their culture and biology. And honestly, those pups won't last long without help." Maria nodded in agreement. "From what I've gathered so far, the Vorthox value honor and loyalty above all else. By accepting their request, we're showing them that humans can be trusted allies. It could open doors for diplomacy in the future." Sophie chimed in, her practical nature shining through. "We'll need to make some adjustments to the ship. Those pups are big, even as juveniles, and they'll need space to move around. Plus, we don't know much about their dietary needs or behavior yet. It's going to take time and resources. Alex raised his hand slightly, drawing everyone's gaze. What if we start small? We can bring one pup aboard first, see how it reacts to us, and go from there. If things go smoothly, we can bring the others later. Laura considered their suggestions carefully. She knew the risks involved but also recognized the potential rewards. Taking care of the Vorthok pups wasn't just about survival. It was about building a bridge between two species. Finally, she spoke. All right, here's what we'll do. Nathan, you'll lead the effort to study the pups and ensure their well-being. Maria, keep working on improving the translator so we can communicate better. Sophie, prepare a secure area on the ship where we can house them safely. And Alex, you'll assist with transporting them back to the vessel. The team nodded, each member feeling a mix of determination and apprehension. As the meeting ended, Laura stayed behind for a moment, staring out the window at the distant planet below. She couldn't shake the image of the adult Vorthoks watching her with those glowing eyes, their expressions unreadable yet somehow filled with hope. Whatever happened next, she realized, would define not only their mission but humanity's place in the galaxy. Later that day, the crew returned to the surface, approaching the Vorthok pups cautiously. One of the adults stepped forward again, its deep growl resonating through the air. This time, Maria managed to catch a clearer message. Protect them. With careful movements, Nathan extended his hand toward the smallest pup, who sniffed it curiously before letting out a soft chirp. Slowly, the creature allowed itself to be guided toward the shuttle. As the team lifted off with the first pup secured safely inside, Laura felt a strange sense of pride. They had taken the first step into uncharted territory, not just in space, but in understanding the bonds that could form between vastly different beings. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from Earth and its bustling colonies, the exploration vessel SS Horizon drifted silently through the void. Its crew was on a mission to map uncharted regions of space, searching for signs of life or resources that could benefit humanity. Among them were Captain Laura Hayes, a calm and decisive leader, and Nathan Cole, a curious biologist with a passion for alien ecosystems. Together, they had spent months traveling through empty stretches of stars, finding little more than barren rocks and icy comets. One day, as the ship's sensors picked up an unusual signal, excitement rippled through the crew. The signal led them to a planet shrouded in thick clouds, its surface barely visible from orbit. Laura ordered the ship to descend cautiously, her sharp eyes scanning the readings on the main screen. "This place is teeming with life," she said, her voice steady but tinged with awe. "We need to take a closer look." The team prepared a shuttle to explore the surface. Alongside Laura and Nathan were Maria Lopez, a linguist skilled in decoding alien languages, and Alex Carter, the ship's pilot known for his quick reflexes. As they landed, the air outside was thick and humid, filled with strange scents and sounds. Towering trees stretched toward the sky, their leaves glowing faintly in the dim light. But it wasn't the plants that caught their attention. It was the creatures. Massive beasts roamed the landscape, their armored bodies glinting under the pale sunlight. These were the Vorthoks, towering predators with sharp claws and piercing eyes that seemed to glow like embers. They moved with power and grace, their growls resonating through the air. Despite their fearsome appearance, the creatures didn't attack the humans. Instead, they watched curiously, tilting their heads as if studying the newcomers. Nathan stepped forward cautiously, holding up a small device designed to analyze biological samples. "These are incredible," he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "They're not just animals. They're intelligent." He pointed to the way the Vorthoks communicated with each other, using low-frequency rumbles and gestures that suggested complex social behavior. As the team observed, something unexpected happened. Several smaller versions of the Vorthoks appeared at the edge of the forest, their movements hesitant. Unlike the adults, these pups looked vulnerable, their armor less developed and their eyes wide with uncertainty. Nathan noticed they weren't being cared for by any of the adults nearby. "They've been left behind," he said, frowning. "But why?" Laura approached one of the adult Vorthoks cautiously, raising her hands to show she meant no harm. The creature lowered its massive head, staring at her with those glowing eyes. Then, it let out a series of guttural sounds, accompanied by deliberate movements of its claws. Maria quickly activated her translator device, though the machine struggled to make sense of the noises. After several tense moments, fragments of meaning began to emerge. "They're asking us for something," Maria said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I think they want us to take care of their young." The words hung in the air, shocking the team into silence. Why would such powerful creatures trust humans, a species they'd never met before, with their most precious treasure? Laura glanced at the pups, who were now inching closer, their large eyes filled with curiosity rather than fear. She knew this decision would change everything. "We'll need to discuss this," Laura said finally, her tone firm but thoughtful. "But we can't ignore their request. If we leave these pups here, they might not survive." The team exchanged uneasy glances, aware of the risks involved. Yet, deep down, they also felt a spark of hope. This could be the beginning of something extraordinary, a bond between two vastly different species, built on trust and mutual understanding.